y'all, it's me. I'm back. Sure, they didn't want me to be great, honey. I couldn't get my video up on time, so I am here finally. It is your girl Sabrina here with the Blind Spot, season 1, episode 13. Erase weary youth. All right, so what is going on? So when we come back into the episode, I'm trying to fix this camera so y'all can see me and get my beauty and all of that. All right, so I guess that's it. Y'all want to see my little lovely face. All right, can I back it up a little bit? All right, here we go. So we working. All right, so when we get back, we have Jane running, and little flashes are going through her mind in terms of her discussion with the dude Oscar about Orion. That's where you died. That's why you're here. She's seeing herself saying you did this to yourself, and she's also flashing back to just other things she's seen in terms of the situation with Carter, etc. So then Kurt and his sister are talking. She comes in. She's doing the walk of shame and whatnot. And she was like, well, who said I'm ashamed? So then she changed the subject to the father, basically, to go ahead and get that attention off herself. So then we have Patterson, who is tearing this little training dummy up. The little plastic one. She tearing him up. And basically, Zapata and Reed are kind of like, so is the reason why you beating that dummy to death because of the upcoming arraignment for the Russian spy or source who had something to do with David's death? Child, I've been calling this boy Daniel this whole time. I've been calling him Daniel this whole time. His name is David Wagner. So y'all please excuse me for that. And she just was like, basically it is, but she doesn't want to allow that to impact how she's working as far as her job and whatnot. They explained to her that if she took a leave or she left, nobody would be mad at her, that we would understand the reason why she did. Because at this point, she's mourning the death of somebody that she loved. So that's understandable. All right. So then we see the Russian lady. She wasn't Russian, but she's a spy. We're going to call her a spy. The Russian spy lady who they caught and has said that she's the one responsible for David's death because she was working with whoever these Russian people were to actually kill him because he was, being nosy and getting all into the business in reference to those files he should not have had that Patterson had. So, and this is just a point to people. Like, I know on a normal basis you ain't really with people who are in the FBI, but that's just a tell to stop being nosy and be all in people's business because she had told him to leave them files alone. He still insisted because he was smart and, I'm going to try to help you figure it out, which was wonderful if you had kept it to the house. But no, you want to follow the people and go to the library and you got your ass killed. So anyway, rest in peace, David Wagner. So the lady they're in the room with the judge and basically like in the judge's chambers. And the lady was like, I know the name. And the judge was like, well, the attorney was kind of like, what? And the judge was like, did you know this? And she was like, no. And the attorney was like, so I need to take a moment for my client to go ahead and, discuss a deal. So the judge was like, you got 15 minutes. You need to come on back. She got in that bathroom and she asked the lady, she said, so you know the names? And she was like, yeah, I had to wait till we got to the judge's chambers. I wanted to make sure, that there wasn't any issues. So the lady said in Russian to her, I feel sorry for your children. Drown that lady in the damn toilet. So when she drowned the lady in the toilet, the security from the courthouse came, pow, 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 killed her. So now we got the team investigating the murder. So the team is investigating the murder. And, they know her because they are the ones who brought her in terms of David's death. So then they kind of like are running down who she was in terms of the attorney that killed the lady and all that kind of stuff. They know who the other lady is regarding the case, but they're just running down that she's actually the attorney. She worked for a company that's on retainer with the Russian embassy. So now they're looking into why would she be wanting to kill somebody. Now, before they actually get to looking into the deep stuff, Mayfair actually tells Mayfair tells Weller that something weird is going on in terms of this particular case. They think there might be a mole. And he was like, well, I'll get the team on it. She was like, no, just you. Because I don't want them, basically knowing that we might suspect it and it might be one of them. So we don't need to have that part in it, okay? So they're still talking about, so when he goes back and he's talking to them about the cases and all that kind of stuff about what happened, here comes Fisher's messy ass. And Fisher basically tells him how he rushed over here. We know that there's a breach, and we're going to find out who it is, and I'm here to get all of that information. So while the team is talking about the lady, they kind of find out that she was a fixer in terms of her being on retainer. This black lady named Sloan shows up and is talking to them in reference to the investigation, and she's basically saying that she can help because she has something to do. She's the one who actually originally helped them in reference to the Russian lady, or the Russian spy lady, who ended up getting killed by this attorney. So when Sloan comes in, he takes her outside and is basically like, don't tell them that there is this about this mole theory. And she was like, why you think it's one of them? He was like, just, kind of keep it on the hush. They're trying to keep that thing on the hush, and here come Fisher telling the entire team that they being investigated. And everybody kind of looking at Weller like, you knew this? What's the tea? Was like, what's really good? So as we know, Fisher with his little stinking, I cannot stand him. And y'all finna find, I said it. I knew someone right with that man. Anyway, so Blindspot was really good. I think I'm sitting really low is what it is, because I feel like I don't see myself. But anyway, we're not going to focus on that today. Excuse this video for whatever it is, and I'm all over the place, and, I just want to make sure I get my Blindspot review up today. So Fisher is asking for polygraphs. He wants to use Mayfair's office for follow-up interviews, and then he wants to have a place that he can hold people, I guess, if he find out somebody has something to do with being the mole. So Mayfair basically just tells them that Fisher's going for her job, and this is going to help him discredit her and disgrace her so he can get in her position, which is what she's always maintained with him, let him know that she know, and she just maintains that he's gunning for her position, so he got to try to bring her down in any way that he can. So Wells lets her know they're going to find a Russian spy before Fisher does or whatever. So he interviews Weller first. So he's asking all these questions. Have you slept with a coworker? Are you sleeping with Officer Knight or Agent Knight? He was like, yes. Have you slept with any other agents? No, I haven't, et cetera, et cetera. And then during the interview, before they start with Weller, the dude Fisher asked about that Turkish coffee again. So then Sloan is asking Zapata and reading them, are there any other clues in reference to that, and in terms of the Russian spy lady and the lawyer and those killings and stuff, and whoever the Russian source may be? She is also, y'all excuse me, but this just is bothering me. Look, you gotta rig stuff up. You gotta rig it up and make it work, right? So this is gonna give us a little bit of height. It was just bothering me, and this is just off the rip video, so it'll be all right once I can get it focused. Is that too, maybe I need to bring it, is it too high is what it is? Maybe we can come here and come back. Okay, there we go. I was trying to lift it up, I needed to bring it down, I needed to bring it down. So where was I? Okay, so then, Zapata and reading them, they're basically trying to figure out why Weller wouldn't tell them, and they're all a little tight. So then Patterson briefs them on the diplomats who are, she says that she believes that they're smuggling, and they're like, Russian diplomats, they have immunity. Diplomats have immunity in terms of when you're talking about in the country and stuff and committing crimes. And she says that she notices that when they go back to Russia, the smuggling slows down or it stops. So Sloan has an asset at the Russian embassy. And they're like, basically, we need to talk to your asset. She's like, he's not ready. It's a very delicate contact, and I'm not going to touch that. So they kind of badger her into it, and she reluctantly agrees. They're at this time in Mayfair's office, and Weller says to Mayfair, why is she like dragging her feet? And Mayfair tells Weller, hey, well, she knows that 3 dead agents and a dead civilian, that's not a good look. And so she kind of knows what that means for her. And Weller says to Did Weller ask Mayfair or Mayfair asked Weller? Weller asked Mayfair how well she knew Sloan and what was her deal, and Mayfair was like, just not well enough. So the whole building is on lockdown because Fisher is now under this investigation. So you have him talking to Zapata, you have him talking to Reed, you have him talking to Patterson, you have him talking to Sloan, you have him talking to Mayfair, you got him talking to the therapist. Who else did he talk to? Yeah. And that was it as far, Jane. I forgot about Jane. He talked to Jane. So he's asking them, are you a Russian counterpart? Do you speak Russian? He gave the therapist a hard time because he asked the therapist, he was asking everybody, but in the therapist's interview, he said, are you Russian? The therapist was like, no. He was like, oh, but I thought your mom was Russian. And he said, my mom is 1/8 Russian. She's 7/8 some other nationality. He said, oh, so she's Russian. Do you speak Russian? Jane spoke Russian. Zapata earlier was kind of, she was nervous because she said she always bomb tests, and Reed said, it was just, it's just a normal thing. It always ends up coming out that you were being truthful. So I guess in the polygraph world, you can fail the test, and then it's something, that you could confer to. I don't know. But anyway, he just told her, in the essence of it, you end up always coming out on top if you have an issue with what your results are. And he was like, this is about espionage, and they're going to get into who he's sleeping with, and Reed at that point confesses to Zapata that he's sleeping with Weller's sister. She tells him, you need to go ahead and tell Weller because you don't want him finding out from anybody else. And that ain't what Reed wanted to hear, but he does need to tell Weller because that would be effed up if somehow Fisher, being dirty and underhanded, told Weller that we know Reed is dealing with your sister. So, all the questions still coming and all of that. So he asked Patterson, did she feel responsible for David's death? And she, flashed back to that whole situation, and she did. Just more questions. They start asking about CIA agent Thomas Carter. Where is he? Do you know where he is? Did you ever work with him? Zapata was being real slick about the question. And before they give Reed's test or the results of the interrogation, Reed does tell Weller that he is he didn't say sleeping with, but he told him that he was seeing his sister. He said, are you guys serious? And he said, I wouldn't be with her if I wasn't serious. And basically Weller told him, you can't be with her. So then Weller's trying to, again, still solve the crime, etc. So he's trying to get Fisher to remove the lockdown. Fisher was like, we don't need to remove the lockdown. The mole is in this office right here. So he says that Jane, Zapata, and Mayfair all had inconsistencies on their tests, and he's going to find out what is going on and what the inconsistencies were about. So the traitor is here. So they're in the office talking. It's like a little glass room. Everybody can see them sitting in there. So he wanted people in the office to be able to see, I've done an investigation. Now here are 3 people that I think are basically the person who it could be. So then Mayfair is telling the girls that she's sorry because they're basically getting dragged into her situation with what's going on with her because Fisher's gunning after her job. She said that he's getting ready to tear our lives apart to find anything that he can so he can get into her position. So then here goes Sloan gonna try to that's the black chick. She don't work with them, but she came and helped them. Remember I said, so she's gonna try to basically down talk Mayfair to Weller, and Weller shut that down so quickly. She was just like, what is Mayfair's deal? And do you think he was like, it's not Mayfair. Fisher's trying to railroad her. And so he then turns it around on her. He said, what's up with your asset? And she was like, he's an embassy driver. And I caught him with heroin in the glove box. So Weller's like, you need to let him know that you can get him off of that so he can talk. We need this done. So what about the lockdown? That's what how they're going to get him in. So Weller was like, I'll figure it out. So then Fisher goes and he's talking to Mayfair, and he's saying, I got the Guerrero file. Remember, that's the guy who she was supposedly his handler in terms of him being an informant. And he was like, first of all, it's a lot of redactions. So if you don't know, a redaction in the file, and I really actually just found out what redaction was when watching How to Get Away with Murder. So it's when they have a file of information on a criminal or a case and they black out the stuff. So some of it is like confidential. Beyond the file being confidential, the information is confidential because of how it may impact. If it's an informant, you don't want their name, address, and all of that information out there. So he says there's a lot of redactions in this file. He was like, Guerrero's a murderer. He's a gangbanger. How compromised are you? And she was like, you wouldn't be sitting here. You would not be sitting here in my office having a conversation with me about this if you had anything. We're all clean. So then he shows the part of her test, and basically she was kind of like all over the place or whatever. And he told her that they did a sweep on her house, and he found a surveillance thing that was in a light switch. So he said, well, who want to be... who would want to be surveillancing you? Who would want to be following you? Who would want to be listening to what you got going on? And so she was like, nobody. I don't know why. He was like, I could tell when you're lying. So she told him that Carter had tried to get her to give information on Jane. She refused, so he must have planted that in her house. So then they go to ask Reed, and Reed confirms that Carter actually had also came to him trying to get information. So... the agent Knight comes and brings the driver, his name we find out is Roman, to talk to them so that he can identify who and what had went on in terms of him driving. So we see Sloan and Roman talking before Weller and the team can get in there, and the conversation already looks suspicious. So you kind of already feel like something is kind of going on. And so when Weller goes in to talk to the guy, he's like, I ain't saying nothing to y'all before I get a deal. So Weller goes and takes a picture with his cell phone, and he said, okay, so either I can send this picture of you and I, meaning you talking to an FBI agent, to the Russian embassy, or you can talk to me. Which one is it going to be? So the guy starts talking, and you see Patterson and Jane in the room, and Patterson put on his little tablet to Jane, everything's going to be okay, because you can kind of see that Jane's worried about what's going on. She, in parts of the time, she's in parts of the time seeing like flashes of the other things that have happened to her in reference to Oscar and all that kind of stuff in the midst of this investigation, because that stuff plays into this whole situation about there being a mole. So Fisher, with his dirty ass, is going to say he said to Patterson that Reed said that Jane was without her detail, which Patterson never said. Which Reed never said. Reed always maintained in his interview that Jane was always with her detail. She was never without her detail. Patterson was saying, yes, no, she was always with her detail. He was like, well, that's not what Agent Reed said. And and wasn't her detail lifted, et cetera, and, basically saying that the night that Carter was gone missing, she was somewhere where nobody knew and nobody could confirm it or whatever. So Patterson did eventually say, Jane would be alone sometime. She would want to be alone because you have people on detail on you all this time. Nobody want nobody all up in their face all the time. So he was like, well, can somebody account for the night that Thomas Carter went missing? And Patterson was like, I can. So we flash to Roman talking to Weller, telling him that he drives to meetings, and Weller's want to know who's at the meeting. Is the FBI agents? And he's just being all difficult. He don't want to answer. Weller showed him that picture again. Like, do I need to send this picture? So he says, Slava. He said, I recall him saying something about inside help, but I don't know any names. He said, I can remember faces. So Agent Knight, she is on the side that something is not right about Jane. So she was like, aren't you going too deep into this? It's Jane. Her past is sketchy. So Reed comes in and tells Weller that Fisher is looking for him. So he tells him that on your polygraph, now they're in Mayfair's office. He takes his jacket off. He getting all comfortable being smug like he is. You lied on your polygraph about sleeping with a coworker. Your nephew said, I saw Auntie Taylor and my uncle outside kissing. You sleeping with the enemy, et cetera, et cetera. So he said, one, a kiss doesn't have anything to do with sleeping with each other. We did sleep together. We kissed, and she went home. So he said, what does this have to do with the mole? Fisher asked him, did you walk her home? And Weller told him no. He said, your story and Patterson's story gives Jane time to have had something to do with Carter being missing. So now he's questioning Jane. He said, you can't account for your whereabouts. why were you avoiding these security cameras? So because he shows her these pictures of herself outside her safe house at like 4 a.m. But she was avoiding the security cameras, but he said you didn't account for the window. So you see in a reflection on a window, I think it was a car window, you see her coming, she was walking. So she said, I couldn't sleep, so I went for a run. He said, oh, you didn't go home? She told him yes. He said, no, you didn't go home. You went out the Carter and then you killed him. And she said, I'm telling the truth. He said, your polygraph is a straight line. He said, I've seen sociopaths who have more of a spike or activity in their polygraph than you do. So he basically runs her life down to her. You were trained to infiltrate the FBI. Your handlers killed the Russian spy lady, and now it's over. So they have Roman looking at faces, and they're trying to get it to hurry up and get done. Patterson, hurry up and get done because we need him to identify it. So they have Jane sitting there, and basically Weller's kind of upset. What you doing with her? He was like, I'm trying to give her time to do a confession. He said, you're twisting the facts. We got the driver of the embassy, the embassy driver who's going to be able to identify the mole. So do you want the mole or not, or are you just trying to go after Jane? So the Fisher goes into the room, and he has them bring up Jane's face. And Roman says, yes, that's her. I know them tattoos. I know that face or whatever. So Fisher says, tell the director I got the mole. And once they do that, they arrest her, etc. Jane's like, it wasn't me. Weller's like, I believe you. So he's still hell-bent on, he going around the room trying to convince everybody, and nobody's believing him. Nice, like, let it go. Then he gets up in Sloane's face, and he was like, this dude been your asset for a long time. You've been after this operation for a long time. Why haven't you busted them? What was it? You must be protecting them. She was like, how dare you? I came here to help y'all. He was like, we didn't call you. You just showed up. He said, okay, stay right there. I wonder what Roman gonna say when you not coaching him. Y'all make sure she don't go nowhere. So then he runs and he talks and he jacked Weller up. And I mean, not Weller, he jacked Roman up, and he was jacking him up. Roman was like, no, I'm not going to say anything, blah, blah, blah. So one time he jacked him up, he seen in his shirt this little fancy designer name, which happened to be the same fancy designer name that that Fisher had in his jacket when he was questioning Weller in Mayfair's office earlier, right? So then Weller flashed to that. So he said, you said you drove to Akbar's. What do they sell at Akbar's? He said, coffee. Oh, what kind of coffee? He said, a black sludgy kind with the grinds. So it flashes to Fisher asking for the Turkish coffee. Remember I said that was weird in the last episode. I said something about him drinking that Turkish coffee. It's something about that. So they running down the facts of when Fisher first showed up. He said, I'm just coming from the OPR training. I had to, what else did he say? He said I had to squeeze myself into a rush hour morning train to get here. And they said the orientation was in Newark at 8 a.m. Olivia died at 8:06. The director called Mayfair at 8:30, and Fisher shows up here like a little bit before 9. They say it's no possible way he could have got from Newark to the FBI offices before 9 o'clock unless somebody had tipped him off before, like whoever had done the hit. It would be a perfect cover, and he has OPR jurisdiction, which is the Office of Professional Responsibility. He has that OPR jurisdiction, so he could know when somebody was getting close to this particular contact in terms of those smugglers. So eventually Roman tells that Fisher is the mole. He was like, he's a dangerous man. He threatened he would kill me. And they show a flash of when Fisher came into the room. When he made them pull Jane's face up, he said, you wouldn't want someone near you in your immediate reach to be killed because of this. And he you see him look at the dude Roman, and the dude Roman is a little nervous or whatever. So he said that Fisher is a double agent with them, and that, that's the reason, that's basically what it came out to be. And at this point, he's trying to shut Jane up because obviously Jane knows something about him, or he's nervous that she knows something if her memory comes back before, he can get his plan out or just to catch him, period. So then we flash to Fisher taking Jane, and it's basically like some little FBI dungeon or whatever. And he's telling her, look, I got all of this on you in a couple of hours. Imagine what I could do with days, weeks, months. It's over. You're done. So Weller finally gets there because, they figured out that it was Fisher. And he gets there right before they're taking her, and he yells out to Jane, Fisher's the mole, it's him. So Jane's walking, she kind of looking, whatever. Fisher done ran off, child. He old punk. He gone because now his cover has been blown. And Jane, because she's a superhero FBI trainee, she got handcuffed. Now, mind you, she got on handcuffs, baby. And she told both of them agents who both had guns, told them up, boom, boom, pow, 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 and got their guns. And then she went after Fisher. So she running after him. He talking a little junk down the hallway to her and da-da-da-da-da. So now Weller finally busted in and got through to the place so he could be following Jane, Zapata, and Rita working with the little shot up agents or whatever. Or maybe she had just knocked him out. I don't think she shot him, but she did shoot Fisher's ass. That's for sure. Because when they got to the end of the hallway, she was like, it's over. And he was like, okay, and da-da-da-da-da, whatever. And he tried to pull his gun on her, and Jane shot him. So Sloan says they're going to get all the diplomats. They're going back to Russia. No more immunity for them. And then Jane's kind of worried about what's going to happen to her because she shot Fisher. And they say, well, he pulled his gun on you, so that's self-defense. She told Weller to thank you for standing up for me. And he offers for them to talk, but Jane was like, I'm just going to go home. So Reed and Weller, they talk further about his sister. And that's when he really, really reiterates to Reed that it's time for you to end it, etc. So Zapata goes home, and she's in her house talking to the air, telling it, you don't have to be listening to me at my house. You want to know something? Call me. What you looking for and what you need, call me. Now, her place is a mess because they had, of course, ramshacked it because they were trying to find some information. They don't, you know what I'm saying? That's messed up when them folks come in searching your house. My light switch wasn't hanging when you came in here. Can you kindly, after you undo that, put that back, sir or ma'am? Thank you. Kindly. Appreciate it. But no, they leave it's just hanging, honey. It's just hanging. She gonna have to find the screws because I'm sure that they didn't put them nicely anywhere. Her stuff is everywhere. But anyway, she turns around after doing all of them dramatics and the phone rings. So then we flash to Weller arguing with his sister about Reed, and you can't see him, and basically, Weller is saying the job is dangerous. He don't want her to lose anyone that she loves. He doesn't want her to get hurt based on it. And he just broke down, basically, and was like, you don't know what this job does. It takes everything from me. It has taken everything from me. I don't have anything left. So he just in his feelings about what the job has done because he has lost love and the ability to love and be with people because of the job. And I think it's just probably like not trusting and all that kind of stuff. And you're dealing with criminals who are willing to find out who you are, where you are, what you have, who you love, and kidnap them or kill them in order to get to their goal, especially when you're dealing with terrorists. So I think that that's his thought process behind it, and that's what he wants to get across to his sister. But his sister's like, child, boo. Anyway, so we have Oscar and Jane on the roof, and Jane is like, do you know how much danger I was in today? Like, I almost got busted. She was like, their story was, they didn't have all the facts, but they weren't far off. They weren't far off about Carter's killing. They weren't far off about me being a mole because I am a mole. And she had originally asked him, she said, who do you work for? But she had said it to him in Russian, and he tried to act like he didn't know what she was saying. He said, is that Russian? He said, I don't know anything about, oh no, that's what Jane told him. She said, I don't know anything about other than what you told me. And I can't even trust that. And so he was like, I do know you. And basically trying to sweet talk her or, talk calm to her. And she was like, bump all this circle of BS going around and around. I want the details. So he told her, exactly who you working for. And he was like, because she was telling him she felt bad, I guess, about killing Fisher. And he was like, well, look, your secret is still safe by any means. He was like, somebody had to die and it was self-defense or whatever the story was. But at this point, it really just keeps your secret safe and we can still fight another day for whatever that is that they're supposed to be doing. So he tells her he has a time-sensitive tattoo for her to look into. And she was like, no, I'm out. Bye. And he says, Taylor, she's gone. So Reed goes and talks to Mayfair. He was like, I don't want to go behind Weller's back. He said, but something ain't right. I don't know why no one wants to see it, but don't we have an issue with the fact that there were a lot of inconsistencies in Jane's story in reference to her whereabouts and all that kind of stuff? Mayfair was like, close the door. So I think at first Reed had thought that Mayfair was going to give him ish about basically snitching, but she was like, it is a problem. And what are we going to do about it? So now we're getting ready to see all the stuff that's going on with, now Zapata done got that phone call. So what's that about? We got Reed and Mayfair going to be working behind Weller's back to figure out Jane, and then all this other stuff that's going on in terms of Jane and the Orion and what that is. Blindspot was so good. Y'all really definitely need to watch it. I thank you all for supporting, for all of yous and all of my subscribers. If you're watching and you have not subscribed to my channel, please click that subscribe button. Please click that thumbs up button. That's very much appreciated. You can catch me on other social medias. I am Thick Madam 730 on all other social medias except for Snapchat. I'm Breezy F730. This is your Quantico. This is your Blind Spot review. Appreciate you for watching. I'm going to do better to get it on time, y'all. I'm going to do better. But I appreciate your support. Y'all have a good day. Bye.